heckle.
No questions.
I says, you're not doing it. I need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. You sort of all can sit there and observe you like a school person. So I watched. Instead of sending them to where you've got the south down, you go to that side. If you've got you go to the south.
Everything's quiet. It's quiet this morning. Strange.
Right, we'll get started. We don't have the place to turn in, but we can come back to it. Good evening, everybody, and welcome.
Good evening.
Item 1 is any declarations of interest. Nope. Item 2, no public questions here. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting.
Chairman, happy to move those. There was a request from one of Pendle Council's officers to take an urgent item at tonight's meeting.
It's okay. We'll come to that. It's not urgent. Matt Williams.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not urgent.
Well, according to the email that attached from the property owner, there was some urgency to it. So I was going to suggest that that could be taken under the where is it? Item 11.
Yeah, when we get to it. Yeah, but we've discussed it and it isn't urgent. That's what I've been told. Good evening.
Good evening. Sorry I'm too late. Can I sit here?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you can.
Sorry, Chairman.
Yeah, well, we'll decide when we get to it because we've got to appoint 2 members first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but
Yeah. If you want to take it, that's fine.
I'm Chairman, given the nature of the occupancy of the property, I think it needs to be done in
That's
full,
fine. That's fine.
you know, by committee rather than behind
Okay.
closed doors.
Right, okay, we'll move on. Police and community issues, police aren't here. I'd like to welcome Neil Hardman.
That's me.
It is, yes. Neil's from the Fire and Rescue and he's come to give us a little presentation, I believe.
I haven't got much of a presentation, but I've got some facts and figures for you.
Facts and figures are always on there, thank you.
Yes.
Floor's yours.
So mine is it already? Right, okay. So I did receive an email regarding concerns around some antisocial behaviour that have been going on in the area, particularly in Erie, I think, is probably where the concerns were around. So the sort of activities that the fire service are involved in are pretty much ongoing all the time in terms of engagement with the schools. But certainly with this particular spike in incidents was 2 individuals that were identified. Basically via West Craven School we've had what we call fires visits and one-to-one sessions with those individuals, and so them incidents were sort of April, May time, and since then we've not had a repeat of that situation. So touch wood, we're sort of on top of that one. We've certainly had quite a bit of concern around, and people have raised it with us around people swimming in Thornton Quarry and up there, so that's something it's on our radar at the minute, water safety wise, particularly coming into the school holidays. So we've been engaging with the schools and sort of offering that out there, but certainly through this room is that offer is out there for us to attend, and we will certainly be doing sort of walk-arounds around places like Foulbridge Ridge, places like that, and doing some work. We're going to actually work with the police cadets on that as well, putting some sort of signage up. But that's sort of that more than the sort of antisocial behaviour fires, because they were very low numbers really, those incidents, which were sort of pretty much dealt with quite easily. But we have noticed across the county a sort of there's definitely been an increase in fires with sort of younger children, particularly in sort of unoccupied properties, which there is a lot of across the county at the minute because of the way the economy is and sort of the move away from shops in town centres. I mean, it's certainly not in Barnoldswick, it's a really vibrant town centre, but it's something to be aware of. If you've got sort of unoccupied properties, is the security of those properties is something to really bear in mind. We are certainly with the fire service, a little bit of what's going on within the fire service. We're due to publish an emergency cover review in the next few weeks via the Combined Fire Authority, subject to their approval. So that'll be going out for consultation. So that's something to have a look at as well. And I think it's it's going to be quite a robust plan, I would suggest, that suggests a few changes to the current setup. So it'd be definitely something to keep your eye on to see how that's going to play out, and obviously consult on and feed in. And also another area of operations that we're sort of really pushing out, and this is on the back of Grenfell, is that we are now carrying out business fire safety checks, and that's rolling out across the county. And that is, whereas for many years we have a team that are dedicated to fire safety in businesses, we're now rolling that out to operational crews again, which we did many years ago, but we sort of, as government wanted to sort of be less sort of invasive, I suppose, on business and sort of a lighter touch, but we're sort of moving back towards a much more involved angle in terms of safety in businesses. So we're rolling that out across Pendle. That'll be coming out at the end of July. It's sort of, we piloted it over on the File course, and now we're rolling it out. So there will be opportunities for businesses to invite us in to give advice, and also we will be targeting areas where we feel that we're having incidents. So we'll be looking at our risk plan across the borough, and then we'll be targeting businesses on that basis as well. So you'll probably see a lot more of us fire crews out in the area as well. I think that's pretty much it. Unless, I mean, obviously we're here to support you, and if there's anybody got any questions or any requests.
Yeah, the fire safety that you're rolling out to businesses, is that going to be free of charge?
Yes.
And how will businesses get to know about it?
So we will, I mean, businesses can already ask for fire safety advice in terms of their fire risk, their risk assessment, and we've offered that. You know, that's never stopped. But what we are doing now is instead of just being asked for advice, we're going to start targeting areas to, and this is a support mechanism rather than a punitive mechanism. It's just supporting businesses get the right procedures in place for fire safety. So yeah, but that offer could come through the website or through ringing the local station. But we'll, rather than just people approaching us, we'll be also looking for where we have. So we have not necessarily in this area, but we've had lots of situations where we've got residential property above shops where we've had challenges. So we'll maybe looking at that. Across the area, across Pendle. So yeah, that's sort of where we're coming from, a much more sort of knocking on the door, can we please make an appointment to come and have a look at your business. So
Councillor Webb.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, just as a bit of background, I think the reason for the invitation was because we had a number of what you call ASB fires,
Yeah.
and we were concerned about that. And I'd noticed that you'd had an engagement activity, I think it was in Colne, where a pump had gone out to, I think it was the South Valley Youth Centre, and you know, you'd engage with a slightly older group of kids, probably secondary age, and I was wondering whether there was any opportunity for that to happen.
That absolutely can. I mean, obviously, the two individuals that have been identified locally have been spoken to, but yeah, I mean, that opportunity is always there for engagement with youth clubs. I mean, we've been doing quite a bit of stuff around the road safety with youth clubs anyway, but certainly Colne, just going to that, we had some real challenges in Colne, and that still exists around a real spike in fires by youths that attend that club. So we've had quite a lot of interaction with that club, and that's ongoing, and there've been what we call fires referrals, which we can make. Anyone can make a fires referral through the website, and that's a specific package that we deliver to an individual child to try and reduce that antisocial behaviour.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think we've got any organised youth groups that people could attend, but you know, I was thinking more perhaps down Victory Park, where you tend to get youths congregating, whether that's an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely the opportunity for crews to just have a presence down there, and if you've got any sort of suggestions for times when we feel that'd be useful, then I'm more than happy to do that. Yeah.
Thank you. You mentioned the emergency cover review and told us to keep an eye out for that. Are you aware that there are any specific
no, I mean,
changes?
It's very tight-lipped, I have to say. There's nothing out on the table at the moment.
Okay, right.
So I think it's going to the Combined Fire Authority on the 11th, and I think it's going to be going out for public consultation on the 18th of July.
Okay. Could I ask you then, Neil, you mentioned insecure properties, and yeah, you're right, in both Bonaldswick and Earby, we don't have a lot of empty shops, for instance. However, in the past couple of months, we've had two properties that have become insecure, and well, top and the bottom of it, youths have broken in. One of them was in a very parlous condition, and the other one was the cellar, where there were 2 floors of flats above, and it was being used as a bit of a drinking, smoking den, and it was full of combustible material, which so I mean, those have been made secure. In both cases, the property owners have re-secured them, but there is clearly a bit of a trend, and I mean, I've gone to building control at Pendle in one case, and the police in the other case. But should we be contacting yourselves as well, do you think?
Absolutely. So we've got a community fire safety team which is based in Pendle, and one of the members of that team has got a responsibility for this area. So they would liaise with the police, with schools, with businesses. We also do what we call arson vulnerability assessments. So coming up to school holidays, we will go around schools looking at things like bins placed against buildings, stuff like that, and give advice around moving stuff out of the way, really, and just making it safer.
Okay.
So if you identify buildings where you think, hold on, this looks a bit risky, then by all means email myself or just through the website, and we will attend. Absolutely.
Right. Thank you very much. Finally, just over the road, we've got a big poster on the railings there for recruitment, and I just wondered how we were in terms of the local retained stations, Earby and Bonaldswick,
Yeah.
how we were with recruitment and staffing, and whether the availability allowed those stations to operate at 100%, or what the position is.
So I don't know if everyone's aware of the sort of different working patterns we've got within the county, but we have whole-time firefighters, and the nearest whole-time fire station is Nelson. But then we've got what they were retained, and now we call them on-call fire stations. So we've got Colne, Earby and Barnoldswick covering this area. And those members of staff, it's not their primary job. They can give a minimum of 60 hours a week cover, up to 120 hours a week cover. And it's always challenging to keep people engaged in that, 'cause it's a really difficult job, and as time's gone on, the competency of all firefighters has to be the same, so the training, the maintenance of skills is really quite challenging for the individual, and your two stations over this end, it's all credit to the staff there, because there's some really long-serving staff who've put a lot of effort into the units. But going back to your point, what we've just had a recruitment campaign and had a really good take-up, actually, particularly around Earby, where we lost Junior Bell was the watch manager. We lost him last year. He was a sad loss for us. And before that, we had Chris Nuttall who went. So we have just got another 4 or 5 applicants actually for Earby, which is really good. And we've got applicants for Barnoldswick. So cover's good. What we tend to do is make sure either one or the other is on, and they will help each other out to make sure there's one appliance available between the two stations. So yeah, cover's really good, and then Colne's cover is excellent as well. So ideally we'd have lots of whole-time fire stations, but that's an ideal world. But we've got really good cover actually in the area, a lot better than some areas. And Lancashire has sort of tried really hard to sort of improve that through the pay package, things like that. But this area of Lancashire's got really good, decent cover.
Thank you. And if I could just a final follow-up in terms of recruitment, is there any particular attention to recruiting female firefighters?
I mean,
given the changing nature of work, that might be a pool that yields quite good results.
yeah, I mean, we're positively, our sort of diversity. It's not a target, by no means a target, but we acknowledge that our organisation doesn't quite reflect the organisation, the communities that we serve, and we work really hard towards that. We've had a lot of female applicants. We've got a lot of female staff already, and we've, in the last sort of 2 or 3 years, I think we've gone from having one sort of senior officer to having quite a few. We've got 4 or 5 sort of senior position females now, which is really good. But that diversity across the whole communities, we are pushing that. We've after sort of 10 or 12 years of no recruitment, we are, over the last 3 or 4 years, recruiting heavily. And the sort of retirement recruitment profile, I'm sure the police have said the same thing. We've got a lot of new staff coming into the whole-time service. So we do things what we call have a go days, which allows sort of members of the community to come and have a taster session. Certainly the Barnoldswick team have had open days in the last couple of years just to allow people down. So we've just had a recruitment campaign for the retained, and we've also had a recruitment campaign for the whole time as well, which we'll probably have another one at the back end of this year.
Thank you very much.
But it's a priority in that diversity is a real priority for us.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I just ask on that one, that diversity? I mean, you give them a taster day, females, but if they're not up to the job, you don't take them on, do you?
Well, we have a minimum standard of fitness, to come into the job. But what we will do is we'll assign somebody to support them get to that, anybody to get to that level of fitness really, if that's an issue.
Yeah, because I don't want it to look like you're just taking women on because they're women.
No, we don't. There's that's absolutely not the case. We have a certain level of fitness that's got to be attained, and obviously the recruit course is a really challenging course, not just around strength and fitness, but around heights, around confined spaces, around the breathing apparatus. The breathing apparatus elements of the recruit course is our training centre as a firehouse, which is real fire conditions, extreme heat, and it's not just the fitness, it's that sort of psychological challenge of being involved in. But we do a lot of that in them taster sessions. I mean, it's a lighter touch, and it's not to scare people off, it's to give people the confidence to come and try it, and build up towards it.
Okay, thanks. Jenny?
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat what everybody said. I'd like to say thank you for turning up.
That's a pleasure.
Now, the only problem I see is the roads with cars parked on either side. That's a big issue at the moment. I mean, if you're going to a house that's on fire and you can't get through, I mean, I'm dealing with one case at the moment, but I'd like to thank you for what you're doing. Secondly, would it be possible to make sure all councillors and committee members get your email? Then if we have a problem, we can email things to you.
Can that be shared from
yes, you can.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my sort of role is I cover actually Barnoldswick's not my station, but Pendle is my district. So I don't sort of manage the staff at Barnoldswick, but I do manage the sort of the wider issues within Pendle. So I've got Earby, Colwyn and Nelson as my 3 stations, but we're closely aligned with what's going on here. But I mean, funnily enough, I attended Troden last night because they had lots of issues around parking. And I suppose one of the answers is we will get to the fire. Particularly if it's a serious fire, it's not always the best outcome for the car or the fire engine, but that's not our standard approach. We want to engage with the public, and again, like you talked about parks, if you feel there's an area where, so what we often do is we get members of local communities saying, oh, we've been round and done some door knocking and leaflet dropping, and it definitely has a bigger impact if we turn up with a fire engine and do a bit of a campaign on a street. So if you feel there's areas that we can go to and do leaflet dropping, then we will do, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much for that.
Any more questions? No? Well, thank you very much, Neil, for coming to talk to us.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. And like I say, it's the coming out of COVID, it's just trying to get back to that face-to-face and working with partners. So absolutely at your service to deliver whatever we can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Okay, we'll move on. No planning applications. Move on to appeals. Anybody got anything burning on this one? No. Enforcement action. Anybody got anything burning on this one? Nope. Right. Item 7, capital programme. We've just got one bid in for a new winter bid. I thought that we had a budget for bids in capital programme.
Sorry, Chair, it was removed. It was the budget 2 years ago, pre-pandemic.
Really?
So, yeah, it's now been realised or agreed by finance that litter bins, dog waste bins, etc. are now a capital asset. But we must make a bid and we won't.
Okay, Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I think the machinations in progress to remove the capital requirement, but there are other implications as well for area committees. Is there not a budget within environmental services for bins litter and dog waste bins.
There's a street cleansing budget which we use to cover repair and replacement of existing bins. We don't use that budget to erect new bins.
Okay, so this is a new bin on Gisborne Street, and I'm assuming that it's going to be next to the garages.
I think it's near the Craven, which is near the community centre, as far as I'm aware.
Near St George's.
I think so. I saw a photograph, I must admit I haven't visited the scene. It's officers up.
I'm just thinking, when there's a dog waste bin or a litter bin, people aren't always happy if it's outside the house. So that's why I was thinking by the garages it's a bit of, sort of
I can take that into consideration, sorry, Chair, I can take that into consideration when I erect, if approval's given, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah.
It's a slight aside question, actually, if I may, because it's on the subject of bins, not specifically on this particular bid. I'm just conscious that I know in Kelbrook and South there's discussion around replacing some of the bins in Kelbrook and South as part of a progression towards, enhancing the environmental, aesthetics of the village, because we've got sort of some very nasty plastic ones in and around our Beck area, but actually we see there's nice ones here in the town centre. Now, I appreciate there's probably not budget for that sort of thing, but I think the question the Parish Council answer is, if we were able to fund that or part fund that in some way, would that have an impact on the collection services if those bins were made, and even the dog waste bins, if we wanted to say replace the red ones with nicer ones that look nicer at the cost of the Parish Council potentially, unless we could find some money from somewhere else, but would there be an impact on the collection services if they were?
Chair, no, we would gladly speak to you about the types and designs of bins. I'm sure if we were removing a bin, we just simply replaced it with something that looked aesthetically pleasing on the eye. We would accommodate that into our rooms.
Yeah, okay, so if it comes to pass that we want to replace our existing bins on the same places, both waste and litter and dog waste, then if we have a chat, we can
We'll happy to talk.
Yeah.
talk to you about that. Okay,
And if you put a bid in.
that was going to be the logical conclusion of
Okay,
that.
now we'll just go on. Right, so the amount requested is £193. What do you want to do with this?
Chairman, can I put an alternative proposition? But I want to follow something that Paul has just raised there. It seems a bit of a nonsense that if there's a need for a bin, that Mr Walker's got to go through the rigmarole, coming to committee saying, well, doth me can I have £193 to put a bin in? Could committee not agree to say fund half a dozen bins across West Craven, which would add up, say, £200 a pop? So we'd allocate £1,200 for the provision of dog waste and litter bins, and Mr Walker comes along and says, well, we've got requests for one here or one there, but the funding is already agreed. So my proposal would be allocate £600 per ward, which would equate to 3 bins in each ward, and if we need to top it up after that, we'll top it up after that.
Okay, Gaz,
Yes, I'm quite happy to send that, but like I said, we must make sure that wherever these bins are, that they're not, the resident, if it's outside somebody's house or the street. I'm quite happy, but I don't want residents coming and saying, I don't want to litter bin there, you know what I mean? You're going, and will they be collected, on a daily basis, the waste that's inside?
It won't be collected on a daily basis, but they'll be included in the schedule.
Yeah, well, I'm quite happy to second it.
Can I go on?
Yeah, it's not new. If you remember back, we put £1,000 in not all that long ago to renew bins, both bins and dog bins in here. we just took it out of allocated it from the spread, and it was there to draw down as and when. In fact, I think we dispensed with the last bit of it only 18 months ago. It wasn't overused. It was there, and I know when David run out of cash, towards the end of the year, it was used a couple of times. So it's a logical thing to put some money to one side to cover those sort of things, as long as David connected.
So,
Chairman,
what do we want to do? 600 from each ward?
I think
yeah?
there seems to be agreement on
Yeah.
that. Could I follow that up though? Because it'll be 2 or 3 meetings ago now, we passed a resolution asking Mr Walker to come to committee with a report on the problems around non-collection of bins, and in the example that we gave, although it isn't confined to Salterford, it is being felt particularly acutely in Salterford, where bins are missed on a regular basis, and Mr Walker's well aware of this because parish councillor frequently emails him out with pictures, and the people in Salterford are at the wit's end about how to get the bins emptied. I'm not talking about wheelie bins, I'm talking about litter and dog waste bins. You know, and they know for a fact that the one, for instance, in the park is left and it's not collected, and you know, the pickup drives past and nothing happens with it. Now, we did ask for a report. 3 meetings later, we still haven't got a report. As I say, the problem isn't confined to Salterford. There are frequently reports of non-collected bins elsewhere, and you know, we're as councillors, you know, on the front line, unable to answer the questions. It really is unsatisfactory, and it is rather unsatisfactory that the committee passed a resolution calling for a report, and we haven't got it, and I don't think it's even on the outstanding items list.
It's not.
So, you know, it's just like it's dropped off the agenda completely.
Sorry, through you, Chair, the minute actually asked me to check that the schedule has been adhered to. I think at the time didn't raise quite a report. I know I've recently received an email with communication that you raised the need for a report. There was difficulty in saying what you want on a report, to be honest, because we haven't done any changes in staff, but I'm sure each member knows that we are struggling with the national shortage of drivers and filling vacancies and prioritising services. We're trying to keep things running as best we can do. On some occasions, admittedly, there are some impacts. I suppose we don't aim to miss a bin, but if we have to make a decision on whether a Craven is empty or a Pendle is empty, then I have to miss a litter bin, then I suppose that's the lesser of the evils for us, and we have to take that and come back and empty it when we have the resources. The difficulties, as I say, in operating a service of the size that we have is that we have a small staff, prioritising them in doing different things. We have skill levels within that pool of the team, and it's hard to replace somebody with local knowledge if they go off on holiday or if they're off isolating or ill for any reason. Finding temporary cover is hard as that local knowledge, and that's where we do suffer. And we are trying to work around that. We are looking at in-cab solutions and various other things. So hopefully we will work our way through it, but it's where we are.
And are you still trying to recruit people?
We are recruiting. The council's website constantly has advertisements on, particularly for drivers, because we just constantly, as fast as I get them trained, they disappear.
Right, so basically you're doing the best that you can with the resources you've got.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
And I apologise if we do make the odd mistake. We don't intentionally do it, we don't want to do it, we want to deliver a service, and we work damn hard to do that, so I'm sorry about that.
It would perhaps be worthwhile if we could know for places like where we've got some problems, Salford, how often the bins are emptied.
I have communication with local councillor Singleton, and he emails me. Again, and it can be linked, and we are putting litter bins on, rather so in parks, but on towpaths, hidden behind bushes, and as I say, if I've got staff covering, don't know the area, don't know the locations of the bins, they are hidden and they can get missed.
Okay. Alright, so just going back to this one, this £193, are we happy to
Yep.
agree this?
Yes.
Yeah?
Chairman, I thought we just passed
Yeah.
that we provide 1,200 quid.
Yeah, and put 1,200 quid in. 600 for each ward.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy with that? Right. Okay. Let's move on. Item 8, Victoria Road reflagging scheme. We've got Councillor Goldthorpe, I've got an update on this.
It came to, David was there, it came to PNR. There was a motion put forward by the leader to hold fire on this one a bit, because we applied through the UK special funding, prosperity funding thing for monies for this, which would bring up the total quite well if we get it, and I think it's gone through the first stage, and I still think we will then be able to go back to LCC and try and get the difference made up from that source. So it's still on the agenda. We all want it to be done, and we agreed at PNR across the piece to go down that route, but we made it quite clear, I think, to be honest, that we wouldn't allow it to be kicked into the long grass.
And do we sort of have any timescales?
Well, the timescale is how quick we get a decision on the proposal put forward by our engineering department for their pitch in terms of monies towards it, and that's got to be sorted out in the next couple of weeks. Actually, there's another meeting on the 15th, which I guess we'll have a short list to go through.
Okay.
So at the latest, it will be the autumn.
Right.
But that's as far as it goes. We still have to try and find 40 to 50k.
Right. Okay. Councillor Wade, Councillor Tomlin.
Thanks, Chair. Given we're delaying for the Shared Prosperity Fund, and that Earby Town Council's resistance to creating event space, etc., was due to not wanting to delay, I think is that worth revisiting with them, given that Pendle Council's stance is to
Revisiting what, John?
creating a better public space.
I think you'll have to speak to Earby Town Council. The feeling I've got is that the answer is no.
Yeah.
But listen,
I'm only going off the word in here.
No, I understand. I think they made it clear they don't want to go down that route. They want to concentrate on getting the payments done.
Yeah.
And I think, to be fair to them, there's this possibility of getting funding, which is a strong possibility. It ticks all the boxes. And that will also then put some more pressure back on to LCC to match it. But, I mean, I get a distinct impression, reading between the lines, that they don't want to lose the area they've got adjacent to the car park. And the original plan was to knock that all through and make it a wider car park area. That was the original intention. But I think Guerrilla Gardens are now utilising that little bit of extra space. I mean, logically, if it was me, I would look at opening up that space into a wider area, which would then allow you to do a lot of things in it. They're even talking about mini markets, that sort of thing originally. But I don't think the resource of whereby is there at AB at the moment. That's
well,
my opinion. That's not.
yeah, okay. But moving on from that, going back to LCC, I mean, it seems to me that they're sort of resisting this because it's just a reflagging scheme and applying to the Economic Development Fund. You just by reflagging, you're not actually developing that. You're not providing additional benefits to what's already there. And I feel like if a scheme was enveloping additional public space, better pedestrian facility, better shopper experience, then we've got a greater chance at getting that funding from LCC. And I just think that if we're going short-sighted on this and just wanting to get the reflagging done, then we're going to miss out on that greater opportunity, especially with the shared prosperity fund. If we're waiting for that,
Well, there's two.
we could potentially get a lot more money than what
You won't get any more money.
needs.
You won't get a lot more from LCC. I'll tell you that.
We're getting nothing.
Well, that's the point. But I think one of the things of trying to wrap this up is get the refurbishment of the footpaths done. Look at money being made available for grants, perhaps towards improving the shop frontages as well. All go down that route. They did have an heritage fund for doing this sort of stuff, particularly the conservation areas, and they committed quite a lot of funds to Clitheroe, for instance, doing a similar thing. But categorically, their response originally, and we've had it in writing, and we've had it both to our engineering department as well, was that they weren't prepared to replace the footpaths in Victoria Road. Now, it may well be, as we wrap all this up in a particular way, we can get some more change of mind in LCC. But whatever happens, it will be on the guidance that AB wants the footpath done before anything else. That's their comments back, not my comments.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, but there isn't. I don't think we're in that position yet. We've got a bit further to go. We may, hopefully, with a bit of guidance and direction, we may find that we get what we want out of the UK Prosperity Fund, I can say it, which will take us a long way down that route. Then, if we go back looking for extra funding, I think it was David who mentioned it last time, of looking at other sources. I know he mentioned it certainly in the policy and resource, of trying to find other sources that are available from whatever area to give us support to get a wider thing done. Whatever we do, you've got to get sign off from Earby Town Council because they own the land. And that is the area you want to do something with, is that top end of town.
Well, but there's still opportunity outside of that area. I mean, you've got the frontage, which is currently used for car parking. You could reduce that number, provide additional seating, shade from trees.
Where are we at now?
Victoria Road.
Victoria Road.
Okay, just about outside the council offices.
Sure.
That's owned by the parish council.
Yeah, they won't.
So, I mean, you
But
Don't lose car parking.
you've got the highway. I mean, there's greater scope than just reflagging what is there now. Is what I'm saying.
fine, go and talk to Earby Town Council.
Yeah.
But it's our engineers who are drawing up the plans.
They've drawn up a plan, they have indeed.
Yeah, and
But
it's
the-
not just the areas owned by Earby Town Council I'm talking about. I think it's greater than that.
Well, if you know space in Earby where you can do that, then fine. We'll have a look at it. But the only space I know of in Earby to do that is the rear car park off Boo Street, on the back side near the factory, the village green up off Aspen Lane is another open space that is owned by parish council.
Could I just come back in? I'm not talking about just an event space, just an increase in the pedestrian experience in Earby Town Centre.
fine.
Yeah.
But there's no, I mean, if you
But
can...
if it's creating that better space, which would provide that economic benefit, that might then let
Right,
LCC
okay.
be saying yes.
Identify the space.
Okay, Councillor Webb?
Well, Chairman, I would throw a further option into the mix, and that is New Road Community Centre, where we've got a yard at New Road which could be used for event type activity, market type activity. That's certainly not in the ownership of Ely Town Council. It's actually in the ownership of Lancashire County Council. And I go back to the arguments that we put forward a couple of years ago for the work in Barnoldswick, where that didn't come out well. We started off with a small pot of money at the town council. We multiplied that up with funding from the area committee and from Pendle Council, and we got to, in the end, we got to just over £200,000, which paid for the work on the town square. But I'd been making a pitch to the county council, and Jennifer supported that, to get match funding from the county council, and that enabled further work to be carried out. But we didn't get that from highways. That wasn't highway funding. The highway people would have just turned around and said, oh no, it don't meet intervention level, you're not getting it. We got that from an economic development pot. So that's the whole of the thrust of what we're suggesting we should be doing in Ely, which is not just be looking at getting the flanks done, which do desperately need doing, and that's why I raised it in the first place, but we actually maximise the opportunity to get funding if we throw in the cultural issues, the activity, increasing footfall, creating opportunities for businesses to actually become more viable. It's that economic development activity that is key, and that goes back to what Tom was saying about, well, can we create more space that actually generates that footfall, that business for local traders. Now, whether Ely Town Council are on board with this or not, I think if we're looking to maximise the money, then, or maximising the opportunity of getting money, then that's what we need to be doing. And if we look at UK Shared Prosperity Fund, how many boxes are there in that long list, 40 odd priorities, that actually talk about visitor attractions, cultural activity, all that sort of stuff. If we put a package together which presents all those different benefits, then we get a greater opportunity to get the brass. I don't think UK Shared Prosperity Fund should be used to let Lancashire County Council off the hook. Bottom line is, it is a payment, it is their responsibility, and they should be doing a damn sight better job of looking after them than they're currently doing. But if highways say no, we know how difficult it is to get a change of heart. But there's more than one way to skin a cat. That's what we're trying to do. I begin to despair, really.
Well, there's two or three things there, Chairman. First of all, we know the deadlines are very, very tight on doing anything now in terms of the UK Prosperity Fund. It's only 3.6 million. It's oversubscribed 3 times, so there is a massive of applications there. In terms of using New Road, yeah, the space is there. It's in good order, it's tidy, it's available to be used for activities, as is the community centre inside. It's got the facilities. It is there to do it. It doesn't need any money spending on the car park. It's been done relatively recently. Inside's been totally refurbished with the library. There's money being spent on it, so it can be used. And yes, you're right, it belongs to LCC. But there is a community association there that can develop it.
But if we delayed this to look into...
There is nothing to delay.
We can't delay it.
There's nothing to
we
delay.
lose out totally.
There's no application. The only application, well, it's not the only application. There's other applications in there. There is an application there for funding for place and community to develop, and that has been put through. There is no opportunity, as Councillor Wick's fully aware, of doing anything else. It's oversubscribed to the tune of £9.4 million, and we're suggesting tonight we should be using that and putting some more in. It isn't going to happen. So we've got to be in the real world here. We've got a deadline which was set, not by us, by the government. We've got to get this boxed off by the 1st of August. Councillor Witt's fully aware of this.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Let's note where we are, and we'll take whatever opportunities we can get in terms of developing that. If we want to have further talks with Ely Town Council, we can do. If we want to make the community centre available, it's already available for activity inside and outside, and it doesn't need a lot of money spending on it to deliver that.
Okay.
Chairman, in terms of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, all we have to do by next month is put an investment plan forward. That's not going to be detailed, that's just going to be headlines. We're not talking about detailed projects, and I'm sure Mike is as familiar with that as I am. So, you know, it's going to be a broad brush approach. These are the areas that, and that's the sort of proportion of funding that we're going to be putting into it. And that's the point that we got to at the meeting last Friday. There won't be name projects with X, Y, Z for this, that or the other. So, you know, let's not kid ourselves that that is an encumbrance. It's an opportunity which we should seize. But the bigger opportunity is the county council, who, you know, in Balnolswit they put £200,000 into those town centre improvements from an economic development pot, and I'm sure that we could get the same for Erie, or proportionally the same for Erie, to ensure that that work is carried out. And that's my argument anyway.
Okay, well, let's see what happens. Right, let's move on. Item 9, Chapman Port Verge. We've got an update on this one.
No reply back from them yet. I'm
From LCC, you're still
you know what
waiting.
we like LCC, it's like
We certainly do. So
But
we'll leave.
as soon as I get to it, I mean, it isn't a major operation. If it was a major operation, I would be singing and dancing down there and shouting at them. But I will get on to them this
Yeah.
week. I mean,
Alright, so we'll leave it on the agenda and it'll come back next month, hopefully, with some good news. Alright, item 10, public spaces protection order. Anybody got anything on this? Yeah. Paul?
I just think I was slightly confused because I thought this was presented as something which had been changed slightly with regard to comments that we made on this in this committee probably 2 months ago, because we were presented with this, and also in light of the public comments that they've added as Appendix 1 to this. It just looks like exactly the same document to me, and the reason I picked that out is because on the list of Schedule 4 it's still missing soft play park area as one of the things under the EAB list. And I thought, well, I know we raised that because that was to be noted and taken back, so that hasn't changed. And I would just add that, having read a lot of the comments and had a look at Section 5 of this, the dog specified number 1, I thought it was a bit peculiar at the time, but I thought I'll see what comes back from the public comments. I do think it is a bit of a pointless bit of the regulation, the limiting to one dog, and I think a lot of the comments, the public comments in there, make a lot of sense. That I think there shouldn't really necessarily be a limit. I mean, the one thing is fairly clear, that if anybody's got 1 dog, 2 dogs or 3 dogs or more dogs, they're either going to pick up the poo of all of the dogs, or they're not going to do it at all, in which case they break the regulation. I don't think the number of dogs matters as to whether or not they pick up the poo. They're not going to pick up 1 poo dogs and leave the other dogs' stuff on the floor. So that's fairly pointless. And again, you could always end up in a circular argument if they decide that it's a reasonable excuse for having more than 1 dog is the fact that I've got 2 dogs. And I can't leave one of them tied up outside as I walk through and then go back and collect the other one. Where do you draw the line and what's a reasonable excuse? So I would say Section 5 seems kind of pointless to me. And as I said, the other point I noticed is there's still early play areas missing from the schedule.
Yeah. Can I just ask, this report is dated September 2019.
Yeah.
How can this same one has come to us?
Schedule, sorry, Chair, was 2019 has been put forward as showing what the schedule is. Paul's asking for the renewal.
These are parts.
No, council asked
Yeah,
for
it's in the
kick
park.
off.
That's why it's
2
not in.
meetings ago.
Right.
Which probably
It's dealt with
send
under
it
the
back for
park section.
inclusion, because there's
Right.
no
This is just...
No, there is no reference to it.
Well, yes, that's as I
yeah.
understand it.
Hang on.
Sorry.
Right. There is no reference to it, so can we send back comments to them again? Because we did it last time about South Park. Yeah.
This is, as far as I understand it, Chairman, this isn't about parks. And the one in Sub Park is in a park.
No, they're all play areas, aren't they?
Yeah, I know, but the play area is outside of parks. So is stuff covered under the parks section? None of these are parks, are they?
No, cemetery is one more, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
a separate
cemeteries. is-
Right.
No,
So they're all standalone, whereas Sub Park
The parks are separate.
is a separate thing.
Right.
That's as I believe, but anyway. We
Okay.
just don't know.
Councillor.
Well, Chairman, don't look at me, because I mean, I think we're just going round in circles.
Circles, yeah, well, we'll just prefer that.
But, I mean, and I'm just going to repeat what I said a couple of months ago when we last had this in front of us, that the number of dogs is only Schedule 2. And
Yeah.
the areas in Schedule 2 are not in West Craven. They are Nelson Cemetery, Barrowford Cemetery and Combe Cemetery.
Yeah.
Now, if the good burghers of Nelson, Barrowford and Combe want to limit the number of dogs to 1, then it's up to them.
Absolutely.
As far as we're concerned, when this first came to us, goodness knows how many years ago, we said we do not want to limit the number
That's
of
right.
dogs
Yeah.
in our cemeteries.
That's why it's
And
not on schedule 2.
it's not in the schedule.
Mhm.
So, Paul,
Yeah,
you've
fair.
repeated
I know.
the argument that,
Yeah,
no, we didn't have an argument.
No, no.
You've repeated the points that we considered 2 or 3 months ago. But like I say, it's deja vu, going around in circles, and I'm not quite clear why we've got this report, because it doesn't add anything.
I'm not neither, to be perfectly honest.
It's part of my confusion, actually, if I'm honest.
Just to approve it, so... Yeah, go on, Julie.
Now we live in a society, you know, where ladies are being, you know, it's a lady and a man and this, that and the other. On the section 3 page, is section C, a person commits an offence if under Article 9, and then it says underneath, he fails to give his name. What about her?
Oh, come on.
Oh, come on, we've had enough trouble with last job.
That's a good point. Someone can get out of the technicality there.
It
Is
is.
it
I mean, I know
Or
she
or
went
Yeah, I think
herself?
It needs changing
a
that.
genderless the name.
Oh, for God's sake.
It needs
Right,
changing.
let's move on then. Item 11, premises improvement grant scheme summary. Premises improvement. Oh, is that what we need to do? Approve them?
Yeah, approve
Oh,
the
so we,
renewals.
oh, sorry, we need to approve these. renewals. Anybody
I
against?
thought it was a central function, not a...
Everybody in favour? Anybody against? No, right, that's approved, right. Move on. Premises improvement grant summary. What we've got to do first is to nominate 2 grant panel members for the year. And I do think it should be one from Barlick, a councillor, and one EB councillor. So who wants to go on this?
Well,
Jenny?
Trevor, I would volunteer as an EB councillor.
I'll support that.
Right.
Well volunteered,
Jenny, you
David.
want to volunteer for Barlick? Yeah?
Jennifer?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
happy to do that.
Okay, all those in favour? That's
Yeah.
passed. Right, okay.
Chairman, the issue that I flagged up at the beginning of the meeting,
Yeah, there's an application in 4 Church Street, Barlick, for a premises improvement grant, and they are looking, it's 450, sorry, go on, Jenny.
I need to declare a personal, is it?
No prejudice.
Non-prejudice.
No, non-pecuniary.
Non-pecuniary. I'll get this out before the night. What the dog said.
We know what you mean.
Yeah.
You know what she means, Jane, don't you?
Chairman,
Yeah, okay.
the application is from the owner of the building,
Yes.
and the reason for the urgency is because the owner wants to get on with the work and it's been delayed through circumstances beyond their control.
Yeah.
The particular issue why I think it ought to be a committee decision, and you know, we ought to be very transparent about this, is that the occupant of the property is a political party, and we don't want people pointing the finger and saying, oh, hey, you know, it's sort of...
Where are we talking about?
4 Church Street.
4 Church Street. It's Andrew Stevenson's office.
Oh, is it? Oh,
All
yes. Well,
So, right. I mean, my view is the grants programme is for properties. The property is in need of a new shop front,
Yeah.
a better shop front. And for the sake of being completely and utterly cleaner than clean, I honestly think that the members associated with the Conservative Party ought not to take part in the decision. And I mean, I would be happy to move that it is approved.
Can I just start there? It does say the property owner is Sally Harrison.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the occupier of the
The
building.
It's the
occupier.
occupier.
Yes.
Right, okay.
So,
Yeah,
look,
yeah,
people
right.
will very easily point the finger.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
so-
I didn't know which property it was.
Right.
Madam Chairman, I agree with Councillor Whip, and we'll abstain from this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I would
so you
move
did
that it be approved,
Okay.
and hope that
You got a
Bartleswick
seconder?
College would second it.
At least
I
it
will.
looks.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favour?
Yeah.
Right, that's carried then.
that must be
Okay. Okay, doctor, moving
Chair,
on.
this question as well.
All right. Right.
Yes.
Oh, Chairman, yes, the other
yeah,
bit
the other bit.
is
we
topping
need
up
to-
the EB allocation. I'm happy to move that.
I'll
Yeah.
second it.
Yeah. All agreed?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's carried.
We didn't spend the other one, but
No, he didn't. That's quite true. Right, let's move on. Back Myrtle Grove. Have we got an update on this one?
Apologies, Chair, we received a late update from Property Services. It says, if I may read it, sorry, it says Property Services team have discussed the possibility of the council acquiring land at this site to develop a public car park, and LCC are considering this option. LCC advise they are also considering the disposal of a bigger area of land in this location, which they feel could include space for a car park. We advise that as part of the sale it could be conditional that for any planning permission granted, the purchaser will create a car park to the council's standard for use by the public. LCC have advised, however, that they are also keen that any potential to create a car park does not affect future potential development or value. And then it goes on to say that further update will be brought to the committee when there is any progress with the discussions.
Okay. Yeah, Councillor.
Could Mr Walker just go back to the beginning of that? I wasn't quite clear. The council is considering purchasing it. Was that? I mean, it's Lancashire County Council's land.
The message that was relayed to myself is that the property services team have discussed the possibility of the council acquiring land at this site to develop a public car park.
Sorry, is that Pendle Council?
That was
Is it
me,
I would imagine
in
so.
my
Yeah,
writing,
it will
it's
be.
Pendle Borough Council, and LCC are considering that option. So I just,
Right.
he says a further update will be brought, but I have no further details. This came quite late.
Well,
Yes, Chairman. I mean, my recollection of this, and Councillor Tomwick's got a better grip on it than I have, is that given the problems with the school dropping off and picking up were as a consequence of the county council building the school in the way that they did, our expectation was that the county council would provide the funding and you know, sort of provide the land to actually create that car park. And I'm a bit dismayed because not even reading between the lines, it sounds like Lancashire County Council are looking to sell off that whole area.
well, can we get clarification on that for the next meeting
Chair.
as to who says what and why? Whether it's Pendle Council or LCC. I'm going to have to wait for any progress anyway, so...
Chairman, Jennifer, when we had the site visit, mentioned that she'd been told that it was the school that owned that land.
The church school owned the land, some of that land, yes. That's what they came back from me with the LCC.
Well, that's all we've got, so
I'll
we're
ask
just going to have to
again.
wait. Okay, let's move on.
Can David ask through David whether the school, church school will own some of that land?
Yeah, if we can find out. who
Then
owns
at least
that
we
land.
definitely know.
Thank you.
It was
in
supposed
the
to be.
estate.
It was supposed to be planted as a forest.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Let's find out the details first. Okay, moving on, item 13. A request for residents only parking on Waterloo Road.
Chairman, I asked for this one because residents had asked really, and I think there is some legitimacy in that there is the school and there are a considerable number of visitors who come along. I think given the way in which these are dealt with now, it's simply for us to pass a request on to the county council if we feel so minded. There are certainly difficulties. Hopefully, I mean, this might result in some action that would be effective.
There always has been. Paul?
Yeah, sorry. I'm not aware of this any further than what I saw. It was on the agenda, so I don't know the residents or the locality of who's asking for this. But I'm just wondering if it's specific residents and they have mobility issues, if they have disabled parking status, as it were, then I think rather than a whole residence parking scheme, which would have a massive impact on all of those things. I mean, I think, you know, we all know there are parking problems on Waterloo Road, and I mean, I live there, and I know it's a really difficult
There always
situation.
has been.
But I didn't say I want residents only parking, because I don't think that would necessarily solve the problem. But I think if residents have genuine access and mobility issues, then are they within their... Is it possible for them to apply to actually have a space outside their own house, which could be reserved for them, which might solve their own access problems, but actually that would be fine, because I'm aware there are a number of those around the place. That would probably solve their problems, but actually creating a residents-only area. I mean, I know I've been at these committees before where they've been discussed, And we all know that there is a knock-on impact of these things
Absolutely.
that is often not really seen in the immediate principle of keeping parking for residents, which it sounds great, you know, in principle, be in favour of that. But I think we all know that actually it creates a lot more problems than simply that. But
Definitely, yeah.
perhaps these particular residents might be better looking at getting their own disabled parking
outside
space
the
outside
house.
their own house.
Don't know if you can elaborate, Mark, on that, no?
It would be easier. I don't think you get residents total parking on there. They've changed the rules recently. I usually have a set with me. They've got to jump through a hell of a lot of hoops
Yeah.
to get it. And you've got to have a large percentage of the residents willing to agree to it. So I think Paul's absolutely right. I think if we could make contact with these two residents and find out if they're registered, they may well be registered disabled. Who knows? But it would be probably easier going through the process of getting disabled parking if they meet the criteria, of course.
And do they have to apply themselves, or do we as a council have to apply for it? So I don't know.
They would have to apply themselves for it.
Themselves.
I think we're still doing it. I think we started doing it again through Pendle Borough. That's something we need to check on. Certainly, Pendle Borough's taken back on the residents issue. So it's worth checking on, and perhaps we can get David to follow it up.
Yeah.
But we will, you know, A, what is the procedure, and B, do we know who these two residents are?
Chairman,
And help and assist them in whatever way we can.
Chairman, the requests that I've had haven't come from the residents with mobility issues. They've come from others who have referred to the fact that there are people with mobility issues.
Oh, right.
So it's not a request from the people with mobility issues. I mean, I would propose that we do explore the opportunity and at least get the initial surveys carried out to see whether this has any support or not. Give all the residents on Waterloo Road the opportunity of commenting as to whether they'd like to see something brought in.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's democratic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So if we could write to all the residents on Waterloo Road.
Well, Chairman, I think the County Council, as Mike has alluded to, have a set procedure, and we got to feed it into their system, and you know they would do the surveying.
I think it's back with Sandra for now, to be honest. It moved back.
Yeah.
It went away and it moved back.
It's come back to Pendle.
Well, when's it come back?
I don't know.
Relatively recently, but I should check it. If not,
If we
There's
can.
set wording for it
Yeah.
in the minutes. There's a set piece of wording so that the survey, you're given permission for a survey to be carried out. So obviously they'll carry out the survey and report back, but they'll also go through the process of checking the county's criteria.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Item B, to consider traffic flows and pedestrian areas in Borwick Town Centre. Any updates on this?
Thanks, Chair. This has sort of been spurred on from the orders that we've consulted on and such. But further to that, we asked for a review from LCC immediately after they were renewed. So, I mean, we don't have any more update on that currently, do we? So I think just renewing that request. But further to that, and we discussed this at Barnoldswick Town Council, is a wider review of not just Albert Road, but the entirety of the town centre. And so the thing that was discussed at Barnoldswick Town Council was reversing the one-way system on Newtown, and then that would, and disallowing access from Church Street, which would in essence create a pedestrian area at the bottom of Newtown for the businesses there, which is the Frank Street Coffee House, Hutchinson's Pie and the Bar in Town. And it would also prevent through traffic through the town centre. So in essence it would create a loop through. You still have access to the on-street parking, but it would eliminate the issues with aggressive driving, antisocial behaviour in cars, etc. So I think the ask to the area committee is to embolden the views of the town council in wanting to have this review take place, and for the one-way system proposed to be looked at by LCC.
Okay.
And would that go to the dreaded traffic liaison committee
Perhaps.
and disappear into the abyss?
Hang on, Jenny.
Well, could I just support Tom? But I think probably the best thing to do in the first place is ask Pendle Council's engineering team to have a look at it and come back with options, and then, you know, just see whether it is a practical possibility.
Yeah.
And if it's got legs, then, you know, we then take it forward further on.
Okay.
I'd just like to come in back Ellis Street. Have you anything booked down on there after this morning's episode with the dustbin wagon? Now, when you go, you come up
Yeah,
here,
but we're talking about this area.
and this is down centre. It is in
Yes,
down
yes,
centre.
yeah, it's all included.
Right, now when you come up here, if you can get up Ellis Street and go on the back, right, this morning with a red car and a big silver car, but the red car had blocked the way to get out. You just enough room. Is there any chance of putting some double yellow lines in this scheme?
I don't see why we can't look
Because
at that.
it's not fair for the wagon bin men this
I know
morning.
there's pharmacy deliveries there too, and residents have to get out that way.
Yeah,
so,
well, they
yeah,
couldn't get out
absolutely.
at all this morning.
Okay, so the proposal is that we ask the engineering department to have a look at this, see the feasibility, and also about putting
I
yellow
think
lines on
maybe a
Ellis Street.
teams meeting just to sort of
Yeah.
go through thoughts from councillors and what could be made with them, and then they could, you know, do a street plan, have a thorough look. Yeah.
So if we could ask engineering department for that, that's great. Okay, move on. Item C, nameplate, maintenance of street nameplates. Pendle?
Chairman, I asked for this one because we've got a heck of a lot of street nameplates that are in need of, well, in some cases more than a bit of TLC. There seems to be a particular problem with the wooden backboards rotting away, and I mean, at the moment I can think of 3 off the top of my head where the signs themselves are, you know, they're sort of just jammed in, or, you know, they're not, well, it's not satisfactory. And beyond that, we've got a heck of a lot of street nameplates where the lettering has faded, so they need repainting. There is a small budget within, you know, Pendle Council's revenue to do this, but it's clearly not adequate to address the level of work that's required. So I wondered whether, as an area committee, we could have a programme of street nameplate refurbishments, and say, you know, if we allocate a modest amount of money for the whole of West Craven and make that available, and we could, you know, make a bit of an inroad into the backlog of dilapidations, as it were. So, I mean, I was thinking, you know, in the order of maybe sort of £1,800 across the whole of West Craven. You know, perhaps if we could do that on an annual basis, that it would allow us to you know, over a few years, get on top of the job.
Okay, Councillor Goldthorpe.
Yeah, and David's absolutely right. If I remember right, the budget for street signs is not just small, it's ridiculously small. And I would agree totally with what's just been said, but I think we should also ask that the budget overall is looked at as well, in terms of getting some money which is sensible. I think the last time I looked at it, there were about 800 quid. and you can soon use that up.
What, for the whole of Pendle?
For this area.
Oh,
So I think, David may know it off the top of his head, but it isn't massive in terms of that replacement thing. And Councillor David Whip's absolutely right. There's a number of boards hanging down not far from here, actually, which, you know, the board gives way and the sign's all right, but the board's gone. So, yeah, I think it's right, but I think also Pendle Borough's got a responsibility to make certain that our signs are in a good order.
Okay. So what do you want to do?
I think we do exactly what...
1,800 each,
Yeah.
900 for each ward.
Why don't we say 2,000 then?
Well, because I'm multiplying by or dividing by
that's all
6,
Yeah.
Okay then.
because it makes it
It's just
easier.
making it-
I just like to give a bit more, you see, mate.
Well, we could make it 2,100, but
Yeah.
you know, get into sort of-
No, let's leave it to
It's all right.
1,800
Yeah,
then.
keep it at
But again,
And
I think you should request that David
Yeah.
strongly looks at his budget for next year.
what, and ask for more money for it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can look at me, Chair, but it's not my budget.
Well, who's Jack? Peeing off? Is it peeing off? Who's Jack? For more money?
No, I just put the message across and report it back. I mean,
Yeah. So whose responsibility is it for looking after the nameplate? It's engineering department. So what we need off the engineering department is to go around and do a recce of all the street plates, unless we do it.
Let them do it.
Chair,
I think it'd be something, sorry, Chair.
maybe crowdsourcing would be an option. Do we know if LCC's reporting system lets you report nameplates that go out?
No idea.
It doesn't, so
Yeah.
I think a request to LCC, that they add that as an option, and then ask them to feed any report through to Pendle Council.
it won't happen.
It won't happen.
It might not,
They don't
but
do it.
It's a slim possibility that it could.
Let's just put the money in the budget and let's find out how many nameplates want
Any that
sorting out.
spotted would get
So
through.
if we get the engineering department to have a look.
I'm fearful to say, Chair, well, I might need to ask finance whether a nameplate is capital.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I would expect them to last for 40 years.
I simply agree.
So that's capital.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we wait for one nameplate,
Yeah.
they'd say, well, no, that ain't capital. But if we make it, you know,
Budget.
sort
I mean,
of
they are-
1,800.
They are being replaced regularly in other parts of Pendle.
There is a budget for
You know, and they're in large numbers as well. Now, where that money's coming from, but if you go and look at Nelson and Colin, you'll find there's quite a lot of names being replaced.
So we need to find out where they're getting the money from
Yeah.
and follow it up.
And Chairman, what prompted me to think about this was the penny pinching that's been going on. I go past a sign on an almost daily basis, which is at the end of Valley Drive, and in order to economise, the name has been abbreviated to save like 3 letters. So instead of saying Valley Drive, it says Valley Drive. And I thought, for goodness sake, you know, it's coming to summer when you can't afford to pay for the IVE.
It's a bit like all that texting stuff, isn't it? Where they're talking a foreign language.
Well, I don't know, but
Yeah.
Valley Drive,
No,
you know,
Absolutely.
let's have enough money in the budget that we
Okay.
can have
All
a
right,
full
all
drive.
right, so clear on that. Item D, provision of EV charging points on Willowsworth car park.
Chair,
Yeah.
this committee resolved quite enthusiastically to request them, to request that that Pendle Council sort of follow the procedure to get them installed on the basis of, you know, free to us. And I haven't seen any movement, so
I've forgotten an update, David.
Yes, Chair. So there was an email issued or a statement issued late in June about the tendering process and a report going to the Climate Emergency Working Group on the 14th of July. You'll be a member of that, I think. Won't you? So they outlined various proposals and request a resolution on how to proceed with the project. So, going initially to the Climate Emergency Working Group.
Chair, so the report to P&R is on the provision of on-street EV charging, I believe. Certainly not rapid. And so this request that we had for this agreement was completely separate to that tendering process. And I'm pretty sure we made that quite clear in the resolution. So
You did?
we did, yeah. So I think that for them to throw that back when we knew that already is quite evasive.
Well,
And I think we need to make representations to
Yeah.
the executive team. And,
if it's going to climate group on 14th, we'll find out what
but it should. It's a separate issue. It should have gone straight to the chief exec and the legal team to be doing the due process. Because we as an area committee decided that in a car park in our area, we would have a separate installation that isn't to do with the tender process currently going on.
Do we know why it's going to climate group?
Well, I think it's part of the climate action.
It's in their remit, rightly or wrongly.
They're doing a tendering process for provision throughout the entire borough based on grants for on-street parking and type 2 charges, which is different from these rapid charges which we can get.
Right, so what do you want to do with this?
Chairman, we want to progress.
Want to
The-
progress
I mean,
it?
Tom took an initiative to contact one of the leading, the leading company in the country who provide rapid electric vehicle chargers. And this, you know, given that they're interested in putting in some, you know, these are very rapid, and people will come from quite a distance away to use them to charge up. And I speak as somebody that, you know, I drive an electric vehicle. I mean, we went down to Tiverton and Honiton, and you know, we were making a beeline for the rapid chargers. And if Banolswick had a rapid charger, and we're very fortunate in Instavolt being willing to actually put some on the car park, because I said, well, what about Earby? But you know, they're not as interested there.
I've got two charging points in here.
Yeah, we've got two very. They are slow chargers. They're 7 kilowatts. We're talking now about 120 kilowatt chargers.
Okay.
You know, you top up your vehicle in half an hour instead of taking 6 hours. It's chalk and cheese.
Right, so what response do we want to give
Chairman,
them?
just as background again, I mean, this from Instavolt was for destination charges, so it's very, very site specific. It's not something they would reply to a tender process for the entirety of Pendle. It's specifically in areas with public facilities, aka the Fernley Avenue toilets, and close to a town centre area. And in Pendle, I think we're very much unique in West Craven for having all that in one place.
Okay.
And so that was why this was a special case, and we were requesting that the legal team start the process.
Yeah. Can
So
I propose?
we need to reply to the legal team and tell them that we want this progressing.
Well,
Yeah.
can I propose, Chairman, that we reaffirm the previous decision of the area committee to request that a contract is drawn up for the necessary release as a matter of urgency, and that we give Instavolt the green. Well, we've already given them the green light, but we actually spell out that you know, we control the car parks. They are an area committee responsibility, and you know, it's time that they actually got the finger out, got this signed up, and got the charges in.
Okay.
Stop faffing about.
In principle, I agree with David. However, who owns the car park and who signs the lease agreement. That's, I think, where you're going to have the problem. And it doesn't stop us reaffirming. If you remember, I abstained at the beginning on this one because of the fact that we don't sign the agreement. That's the problem we've got. It's who signs the agreement. And so Pendle Borough have decided, for whatever reason, that the electric charging issue is in the climate change group. We want the majority of this committee wants these put in place on the car park in Van Orswijk. The stumbling block you're going to have is who owns the car park and who takes responsibility for signing the agreement. That's the stumbling block you're going to have, but it doesn't stop you pursuing it. But I would just raise that as a...
I would imagine that the corporate director, under our decision, would sign the lease, as the car park is under Pendle Borough Council.
Yes, but not under our direction.
Well,
They do not report to this committee.
All right, let's, David's got it all down. Let's reaffirm to them that this is what we want and we want them to get on with it.
But it might very well be that from this delay, it's opportunity then.
Yeah, but you can take it to the policy and resource, of course. You can take it all the way to the full council. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's those two things.
I mean, we know, sorry to butt in, we know it's those two things, but at the end of the day, we're supposed to be all going green and saving energy and whatever, yeah? So,
Right, okay, item 14.
Hang on, Councillor Chair.
Sorry, from what Councillor Goldthorpe says, if there is a particular blockage in something that we are asking who owns it, who has the responsibility, etc., how quickly can we find out?
I think you'll find out quite quickly. It is the responsibility falls within the ownership of the land and whoever has to sign the agreement.
Yeah.
If you're willing to sign the agreement and put your name to it, that's one thing. But we are going to have to convince the powers that be who have the legal responsibility to do exactly that. Now, I'm not saying they won't. But they have to. That decision has to be taken. I think you're going to have to escalate it up.
Yeah. So if you can ask the question as well.
On ownership of...
Well,
Who owns the car park?
Chairman, we know who owns the car park. It's owned by Pendle Borough Council.
Yeah.
You know, there are no, there's nothing that fetters the use of the car park. There's an agreement that with the co-op that Pendle Council will maintain the car park to the same standard as other car parks in the area. That's it, full stop, nothing else. So there's nothing that fetters. As an area committee, you know, we have certain areas that we are responsible for. We've made our views clear on this. I don't think we need to be asking the question, who owns the car park? It's Pendle Council. We resolved, we got a very good offer. It was an income of, was it £1,000 per charger per year for a 20-year lease. So, you know, you're looking at a fair amount of money there, and they're prattling about with a tender that probably cost us money rather than earn us money. And you've got somebody here who's willing to do the whole kit and caboodle at their own cost.
Okay, we should find out.
Well, Chairman, can I propose that we actually take up Mike's suggestion of escalating it, that we request that Policy and Resources consider this matter at its next meeting?
Yeah.
I'll second.
And when will that be?
21st.
Of July?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I was in holiday mode.
Here in August.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. Everyone agreed? Yeah. Alright, let's move on. Item 14. Have we got any updates on Skipton Road, Warwick, Junction near Courts Lane?
I should see the stuff that we received back, sorry, nothing, Chair.
Nothing?
No, it's a station road, not a Skipton.
No. So we're still waiting
Still waiting.
from LCC, okay. Item B, request to LCC to upgrade the carriageway. Have we anything back on
Is
that?
that the concrete A plan?
Mm.
That's in the letter.
You've had a letter.
Yeah, we have a letter on that. Alright,
See?
so they're not going to do it. Do you want to still leave it on?
They-
Or do you want to
Chairman,
remove it?
I would propose that we invite the leader of Lancashire County Council, Philippa, to come and
Look at stuff.
have a look at Station Road. You know, not to ask them to do any work. Let's get her to come and have a look and see what condition it's in.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, it's shocking.
Right.
See?
Yeah, so you can write to Philippa at LCC and ask her, we'd like her
Well,
to come and talk to us.
Leader of the County Council, rather
Yeah.
than Philippa. But
Yeah, we know
yes.
what you're saying, yeah. Okay, repayment to pavement in front of our post office. Again, that's
Well,
included, so it's the same thing,
area.
isn't it? What about the next one? D, HRA to strengthen the carriageway.
Chairman, I mean, this has all got a bit mixed up.
It has on it.
E and D are the same.
But
Yeah.
no, D is the
Technical section.
it's the Life on the Ocean Way carriageway at the junction of Skipton Road with Fernley Avenue.
So
and
again-
the number of people who raise this
Yeah.
and say, you know, it's ridiculous.
So if we can get the leader of county council to come,
Yeah.
we can go to have a look at all these issues then.
Yeah.
Okay, open space at Cornwall Place. Any update on this one?
Well, some work has taken place, Chair, after the last meeting, so there is some feedback from legal, I think, in relation to the ownership of the land which they are currently working with. I think you're saying that the practitioner, sorry, I don't think we have a substantive reply from the practitioner before the next committee meeting, so it's probably better left on the outstanding list so they can come back with a further detailed reply later on.
Okay. F, condition at bus shelters. Any updates on this one?
Sorry, I have nothing on that, Chair.
I've got one point I'd like to make if I can, Chair. At the last meeting, I sort of we did talk about one in Suff, and I have to say that I thought it wasn't managed by a couple of the Suff Parish Council. It's the one that you mentioned that was opposite the park. Turns out it is. So I wouldn't want to be thought of deliberately knowingly misleading a committee, heaven forbid. But it is one of ours, and it is actually, we are going to look at a programme doing it. It really needs to be knocked down, actually. It's pretty much beyond repair, but
Okay.
we are aware of it, and it is going to be part of our programme of refurbishment.
Chairman, I think that just emphasises the importance of the county council including all of the shelters on the quality bus routes within their programme of renewal, rather than stopping at Oak Street at Combe. Because that's the nub of the problem.
Yes.
In Nelson, well, Briarfield, Nelson and Combe, the shelters on the main road have all been taken on by Lancashire County Council. The respective town councils are relieved of the responsibility of looking after them, and yet in West Craven we have the position where the parish and town councils end up footing the bill for some of the bus shelter maintenance work. So it was a two-pronged issue. Firstly, the prime site ones, where I understand there's this tripartite agreement being put in place that the county council will take over the prime site ones, but the rest of them are hanging in the wind as far as I can see, and I think that we should be reaffirming our request to the county council for them to include all the shelters currently the responsibility of the parish or town councils, where the parish and town council would like the county council to take them on as part of the quality bus scheme, the county council should do so.
Okay,
To be fair, I thought that's what we
agreed.
agreed, and that we would inform LCC that's what we wanted them to
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
and await their response.
Yeah.
Clearly we haven't done that, I don't
But,
think.
well, what we got back was we got the feedback about the prime site ones,
Okay.
where the prime site ones are due to be taken over by the county council when there's an agreement in place between the respective
So on
parties.
On that basis, there's a strong case for asking them to do the lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we can ask LCC if they will take over.
The remaining.
Yeah, we may already have that request with them,
Yeah.
but I don't think we've had a response to that bit of it.
Okay. Any update on Norfolk Community Centre?
I was just checking the last minutes, Chair. So the town councils have met and said they would be interested in taking on the community centre, and we were asked to write it to get around and ask if they were willing to transfer the Norfolk Community Centre to the town council, but I haven't heard anything further on that, Chair.
No. No update. Right. We'll have to wait till next time then. North West Ambulance Service response times.
Chairman, Joanne did indicate that this would come to the August meeting.
Yeah, so we'll leave that off. Okay, it's after 15 exclusion of public and press. Can we move this? Yeah, second it. Yeah. Right, Harry, got to go.